Public Works Committee meeting for May 19, 2025. Councilor Wolverton.
Here.
Gear.
Here.
Sims.
Here.
Nelms.
Here.
And Mr. Harden's out. 4.
All right.
Quorum.
We've got 4 out of 5. Can I have a motion to dispense the reading and approval of minutes from May 5th?
Motion.
Motion by Councilor Gear, second by Councilor Sims. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That is 4-0. We have, let's see, old business 370425, request permission to allow planted trees to remain in the right of way at 214 Edgewood Boulevard. Brought to us by Cale Smith and Britton Garrett. It was carried over last time to try and get some additional information, I believe, and I think we have an extra council member here that wasn't able to be here last time too, so.
Yeah, and some of us hadn't really seen it, and the
Yep,
pictures
that
didn't
too.
depict
What was currently there, yeah. Yep.
I do have some packets. It's going to be what's on the screen, but if anybody wants one, it's the exact same thing.
Sure.
Thank you very much. As a refresher, my name is Britton Garrett. I'm the landscape architect at the Pink House. With me today I have Trey Goldstein, Bob Folks, and Lizzie Tracy. They're going to answer some questions that may come up about meetings that happened before I was involved. But for the most part, we're here requesting approval retroactively for trees that were in the right-of-way. There's 2 reasons why we've done this. I believe at the last meeting there was a sense that we've approached this more out of a ask for forgiveness instead of permission mentality. And my hope is you guys can see that that's not what took place. From the outset, as this project moved through all of its variances, all of the hearings with City Council, the BZA, a consistent thread through all of that was the protection of this hedge around the property. And even after the first failed BZA meeting and we came back to the second one, the homeowners gave affidavits to the city saying that, it is our intent to put back the screen so that the pool that sits on the site is screened from view. And so that is the first part of this. You can see, what existed in 2011, right as the project was starting to come off the ground, behind the scenes in 2021, and then even some of the graphics that were shown with the BZA application in 2021 as well. And then just the next few pictures show kind of what it looks like through the various stages of construction. And on the other side, it gets us to what it looks like when there was nothing there, where the existing hedge was pulled down for the sake of construction. And then the last photo is what is out there today. As far as these getting planted in the right-of-way, at the last meeting I made the statement that we had done a code review, and there was some pushback on that saying that it has always been the city's policy that trees cannot be planted in the right-of-way. In 2021, when the project kicked off, there was no landscape section of the zoning ordinance. All of that existed in chapter 19.5, and it really only gave guidance to trees that were being placed in response to meeting the minimum tree density. Well, this project has never come close to dropping below that minimum tree density, and so we didn't have replacement trees. We just had trees that were coming in, and in what we felt like was an obligation, not only in writing, but also just the general sentiment of the community, to restore this hedge that was taken down for construction to maintain that house behind the high hedge and the secrecy, the secret garden aspect of it, and to shield all of the mechanical equipment for the pool and back of house. As we were going through the project, we did the code review, we got permitted, and then all of the ordinances changed 2 or 3 times. The first one was November of this same year, where everything was moved to zoning, to the appendix in the back of the code. And that's where we first see some guidelines on things under utilities or within some type of easement. As we move forward into 2022, that's where we start to see, or that's where we do see the phrase, trees cannot be in the city right away. And so as we're seeking approval, we just want everyone to consider that this was really done out of what we thought was an obligation to the community, and at the time adhered to the code. At least it didn't go anything that was explicitly prohibited. And so,
It's always prohibited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Britton, the clarification is it's prohibited in the sense that it's it's the city's property
Right.
that it's planted.
You have to get permission to do
And
anything in the right
that's
of way.
what the whole thing's about. It's not about necessarily the tree
Trees.
species or anything. It's just
But
to
how-
plant in the city's right of way,
That's right.
it takes prior approval.
Yes.
That's it.
Whether you're putting in a parking pad or planting a tree or
But we
anything.
can-
Do shrubs and sod require approval?
Shrubs do, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
everything.
If you work in the right of way.
If you work in the right of way, you have
ask
to have
the
permission.
architect to know this. If you work in the right of way of any city area, you're required to have permission.
Because it doesn't
The
belong to
city of
you.
Vestavia, when I reached out to them, that's not exactly the rules if it obstructs the line of sight.
Yeah.
So,
You didn't talk to that
Really, cars don't count.
well,
But, you know, what my recollection when this, project started, however, about the perimeter, and how it would ultimately end up was that the privacy would remain, around the perimeter of the property. And if we could just kind of move on to that, because there are a lot of specifics that can be discussed, about, you know, working in the right way. And there was a hedge here originally, just as close to the sidewalk, and we understood that, that perimeter would be maintained, that some of the trees would come down, some of the, vines, some of the privet, that it might change, but that ultimately there would be a privacy perimeter.
I think some of this is because it was at the BZA, not us. But you still would need permission
There's
to,
no-
to come
Well,
and
that-
do.
Well, we can give.
Any of that.
We can give a variance like we have in other cases in this
And you can
situation.
have privacy without it being in the right of way. I
Right.
think that's where,
Yeah.
I think that's where people
Right.
So-
have different opinions is, if there, you can plant this and not have it in the right of way, so I think
Yes,
some.
that's not a misunderstanding on my part. It was previously in the right of way. The privacy.
Well, it was overgrown into the right
And
of
it
way, yes, I
currently
agree,
is,
I don't
it
disagree.
currently is on the front side as well.
All I'm saying is, I'm not trying to take, look, I don't have a vote, I'm not trying to take a position, I'm just saying, what I think I hear y'all saying is that some people thought the screen, or whatever you wanna call it, was going to be in the right of way, and other people did not. Because I don't think there was a discussion about where the right of way was, that was my opinion.
But obviously, with all the survey work and everything else being performed at the property, surely we should have had a clear delineation of where the property line was. And again, professionally, I would think that that would be part of the due diligence process before planning something. Part of what bothered me a couple weeks ago when we discussed this is, what I heard you say was, trees got dropped, they had to be brought in by, crane or pulled off the truck with a large piece of equipment. We kind of got caught midstream here, and we decided to go ahead and just plant them, knowing that we were gonna have to come and ask. And so I have a hard time personally listening to our only option now is we gotta chop them down. Like, after knowing that we were gonna need to have a discussion about it, we went ahead and planted at that point in time instead of holding off and waiting for the steps to play out as they should.
Andrew, I'm not on the committee, but
Sure.
can I just mention something? And I'm saying this because it's happened sometimes. We have people who come in and go through this process correctly. They come in before they do their planning. They ask us if they can do something in the right of way. They may get approved, they may get denied. So they do what they're supposed to do and they get denied, but yet y'all do this without permission. So it creates an unfair situation where people have done exactly what they're supposed to do and get denied what they want to do because we say, no, you can't do that because it will cause damage to the sidewalks, which there's no question, the tree roots are gonna grow and they're gonna cause damage to the sidewalks at some point. So it's hard to justify to me saying no to somebody who went through the process and did exactly what they were supposed to do, and then retroactively saying, no, you're good, when you didn't do what you're supposed to do.
Well, and I
That
think
creates
the
a
other
conflict.
thing that I'm struggling with is, given all of the processes that this particular property has gone through, understand obviously wanting to, kind of prevent or present a physical barrier to equipment and things that might be unsightly. But we've talked about this in all sorts of cases in the past. And unfortunately, like I have a tough time wrapping my mind around this pool wasn't part of the property, it was added, and so now it's a self-imposed hardship that we're requesting because of something we already did in the planning process when it sounds like we could have shifted the pool 5 feet back or done something else if those trees actually have to be that close. And I didn't step on the property, it's not my property, so I don't know how close they actually are to the equipment right now, or if they could have been moved closer to where the property, to where the equipment is, that would put them on the property owner's property versus the city's property.
And I'm sorry.
Can I just say something? I mean, I just want to and I understand what y'all are saying, totally do. But we were up front with the BZA and with the city when we got a variance for the pool and for the house. And when we were first denied from the BZA, we got involved, and there were several things that the BZA was concerned about. One was the height of the house, and the Mobley's ended up reducing the variance they needed for the height of the house. One was for the pool, and the Mobley's came back and reduced the size of the pool by 15%. And one area of concern was, is this pool going to be able to be seen by folks who are driving up Roseland? And in response to that concern, Clayton and Rachel Mobley executed affidavits that, and there were other concerns as well, for what it's worth. One was, is this going to be the Mobley's primary living space? Are they going to rent it out for events and things of that nature? And so we went to the BZA a second time, and we addressed what we thought was the BZA's concerns with respect to all those issues. One issue was, of course, the privacy around the pool, because the neighbors would not want to see inside the pool. And so we said, yes, we're going to, whether it's through existing trees or whether new trees, we're going to maintain that privacy so that it looked the way that it did before. Fast forward a couple of months.
There was a pool before?
No, there wasn't a pool. We got a variance for that pool. So fast forward it to.
Setback variance.
What's that?
You got a setback variance.
Yeah.
That's all you got, a setback variance.
Well, so moving on from there, we had to go back to the city council for, to get a variance for the fence that we got around the property. And at that meeting, I mean, there's video of it. At that meeting, you know, all this was discussed there as well. Was this pool gonna, you know, the privacy for the pool and maintaining everything so that it looked like it did before. And again, we kind of had affidavits and things submitted of that nature. So I'm just here historically because I know that a lot of you were. I don't know how much turnover
Well, we weren't on the
there's been.
BZA, so.
What's that?
We weren't on the BZA.
Well, that's why I'm giving you this
Right,
background.
right.
Because I don't remember seeing you at the BZA or on the city council, which is fine.
Well,
And I
we've
just
all
wanted
been
to-
here since, we've all been on city council.
But that's fine, that's fine.
But my only point was is for historical knowledge.
Sure.
Is to kind of say, we're not here like we're not trying to they weren't trying to pull a fast one. They were trying to do what they said they were going to do. That's my only point.
I understand. The problem is just surveys should be pulled regardless with all of this work,
No,
and it should be
The
known where the
survey
property
was
lines are,
pulled.
so.
We knew where these were going. We knew that the existing hedge was in the right of way, and so the intent was that this went back in the right of way.
So that's it,
No,
and that's
that-
the difference too. Is like when
That's the problem.
we approved, I guess, it to stay as is, but when you plan something new in the right of way, it takes approval because there's a indemnification agreement that needs to be signed related to that landscaping,
Ms. Nell?
which is how we
Yes,
are here.
just one,
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
one
I'll-
thing I wanted to point out is that
Hold on.
I don't think, you know, by any means that you guys don't know the process, because I remember specifically y'all coming to us before us, to make sure before you did work to the wall, because that was in the right of way. And I remember y'all coming before us for that. So that's, you know, again, where, you know, I have some hesitation about it because that was understood then, but it hasn't been understood for this part.
Okay, Beverly?
May I say something?
Sure.
You may remember I was chair of the
Yeah.
BCA during this. So it was our understanding that the overgrowth would be cleaned out because it definitely needed, the trees would be pruned or whatever needed to be to clean up the property so it looked like it's supposed to look. but that would be left there and that it would be fenced because the pool needed a fence. But that's all that my recollection is, and the only thing affidavit I remember themselves signing that came to us was the affidavit to finish the pink house and the addition within 12 months.
Well,
And I still have all the paperwork, so I didn't
Well, I have
throw it
copies
away.
of the affidavits we
But,
submitted if you want to see them.
Well, that's the only one we got.
No, I submitted affidavits to the BZA at the September 2nd, 2021 meeting, because, I mean, you can see the video.
Yeah,
We-
so anyway, it was our understanding, my understanding, and I'm sure, and I feel the same for the other people, that it was proper, the overgrowth and all would be cleared away and the pool would be secured with a fence. So I didn't ever, when I first saw that, I went, well, they got another variance for the trees, but evidently they didn't, so that's.
Well, actually, though, at that meeting, I mean, in fairness to the Mobleys, I mean, at that meeting on September the 2nd that I was at, we talked about, I mean, I talked through this affidavit, and I read specifically from paragraph 7 of the affidavit that talked about the barrier being replaced by trees.
Well,
I mean,
and
so
that's-
I just wanted to.
And
And I think both things could be true. They could be replaced, but also be on your property, not
Yeah.
the city's property. So I think that's where the large disagreement is at this point. And again, to Ms. Nelm's point about, we knew the process for the wall, which was in the right of way, but somehow we didn't think it was important to do the same for the other. I don't know.
May I ask a question?
Sure. Councilor Aldman.
Would it have been possible to have planted the trees on your own property and still allow for the pool that they built?
That's what I was trying to ask.
Yeah, because he
earlier.
was basically
I mean,
saying it's a
that's just-
self-imposed.
Right,
Hardship.
this could have happened, right? This could have
Yes.
happened.
Retroactive.
So when you had done the survey, you knew where your property line was, and there was a choice made to not plant these trees within the property.
Yes, given the fact that we were all operating under the put back what was there mentality. Try and get the hedge back where it was, because if there's a jog that's not the same character, if it's a screen that's only 4 or 5 feet wide, that's not the same character as what was there. All of this was done under the thought
But
process.
you also put different trees that was there before, so we changed the character and the
Right.
nature.
I mean,
of that.
and to be fair, what was there before was
And it
pretty
was also the
overgrown.
fencing, that was what was desired to block the pool, and that could have occurred, it just didn't.
Well, the fencing from the beginning and the variances was never a solid object. It was a.
Sure, so, and there was, I'm just saying there's a variety of options that could have been made, decisions that could have been made that were not.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
One more question. I feel like if this is, again, I have a real problem with, we've denied people this very thing who have gone through the process correctly. This has not been done correctly, and it feels very unfair to me to retroactively approve it. But if it is so important to the homeowners to have this done, would there be a willingness for them to proffer to repair the sidewalks when they're damaged? Because they're going to be damaged by the tree roots. And that will then be us having to repair those, because people use those sidewalks every day and need to use that to safely get to Edgewood for school or whatever. And that's gonna happen, and it's gonna be a trip problem, and that puts us at liability. So my question is, if it's important enough for them to wanna come and do this, would it be something that they would be willing to proffer? When that happens down the road, and it's not an if, it's a when.
I do have concerns with that based on the ownership.
And then along with maintaining.
Well,
the
I
hedge,
mean,
which
let's be
I'm
honest,
sure they'll do.
is that house gonna sell?
Well,
I don't know.
I think it's something they would certainly entertain, because even back before we got to planting, I had a conversation with them, hey, if this is in the right of way, it is not yours. And they understood that. They knew that should it be planted and the city comes back 3 days later and saws it off of the ground.
Well, I mean, that's another thing too. I mean, if for whatever reason we ever needed to access that property, that's part of the reason. Y'all will have to sign an indemnification
Right.
agreement that says, if we decide this is ours, the trees are gone.
Sure.
But I think more importantly, and it's not something that we need to know that they'll entertain, in order to move on this, we need to have an answer, is whether they're willing to proffer that. And that's, I mean, because I can say for me, that would possibly make a difference in what my decision would be, because I feel like if they have taken the responsibility to put these trees in the right of way that are gonna damage the sidewalks, that they should be willing to make the repairs on those sidewalks when the damage occurs. That's just my personal opinion.
I would think that they would agree to that, but I mean, obviously, I know you need an answer, you
Right,
can't say
you
what a lot of
can't.
folks would think they would do.
Right.
but- So, I mean, I would imagine that that is something that they would totally do.
Okay, well, I mean, I
We
think
don't
that's.
have a document because we have to have a legal description of the property.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely not, and first of all, we don't have an answer from them anyway.
And Mike, how enforceable is that?
It's enforceable.
Okay, does it carry with the property as well?
It would, if you have the legal description, you record it as a covenant running with the land.
So if a property were to sell, that's,
They're bound by whatever.
whoever buys it would be in the title and
If it's
paperwork.
recorded properly. That's why I'm saying we don't have that document
Right.
today.
Sure. Okay.
And I will just add to, that really, I mean, just again, this was really about the process needed for the right-of-way approval and agreement, and that's how we ended up here, irregardless of prior variances. But that being said, I've heard of from a number of residents nearby, and they obviously do desire some type of screening from the pool and the pool equipment. So I am also taking into consideration what they would like aesthetically, as neighbors across the street. Given that, can we make a motion pending a proffer, or do we need to hold
Well,
it in committee?
I don't think there's a point in moving it out, because that would be
No.
tonight.
Because he
Right.
said, like
Without
Mike said, we don't
knowing
have any kind of
anything.
document
That's
or
right.
legal description.
Okay. Well, then I'm just fine carrying it over then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would do.
And I hate that because that means the construction continues to be on hold pending this consideration. Is that correct? That's what I heard today.
Yeah,
One portion of it.
It's always helpful for the applicant property owner to be here for these meetings. I mean,
And
at all,
again, the
at all
fact that
times,
the
so.
construction is at hold is not really our problem.
But that is a part of this right now.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
not, but that's not. our-
No, I mean, I agree with
Again,
Councilor
cell phone
Wolverton. It
first.
would be ideal if the property owner was here so we could act quickly.
Yeah.
Do we include in the proffer that they maintain?
That, we don't include anything. They have to
They have
profit,
to-
whatever.
But do we need it to be included, that they maintain the hedge, not that they would not, I feel sure that they will, but does that need to be a part of?
I think the proper would probably be that they maintain everything that's in the right of way and that they make repairs to whatever damage those roots cause when they tear up the sidewalk. Yeah, that's what,
And allow the
And there's an
sidewalk to be
indemnification.
accessible at all times.
and sign the
They have to do
indemnification.
that. I mean,
agreement.
that's-
Yeah, you're gonna
that-
have to do that.
You have to do that anyway.
Right,
Yes.
right, right.
So that's not inclusive of the proffer.
I mean, the indemnification agreement is required by law, so that has to happen. The
And
proper just is, yeah.
The city has an ordinance, the sidewalk has to be passable at all times, so
Yeah.
that's covered by city ordinance.
And just to be clear, I just want to clarify this. I know that you mentioned that, you know, this ordinance changed. We've never allowed things to be planted in the right of way or done in the right of way
Without
without the
permission.
indemnification agreement and permission.
Right.
That has never changed. So
Well, and-
regardless of when the project started or where we are in the process,
Never happened.
that is something that has been consistent at all times.
Well, and,
So.
I mean, with that being true, there was nothing that keyed that off, that was where the line is drawn for the approval. You know what I'm, because now currently it says no trees in the right of way.
Sometimes you just need to be quiet.
Sure. Fair enough.
I just want to be clear, because
Right.
the next time this comes up, not so much about this one, the right of way is the right of way.
Right, it just
It's-
It's the city's
That's like going onto someone
property.
else's property and doing something without
Right.
permission. You can't do it.
You can't do it. It
And
is
the
illegal.
survey shows where the right of way is. That's the reason you have a survey. Now, whatever the council does with this one, that's fine, but I want everyone to understand moving forward, if you do, and it has always been this way, if you do something in the right of way, or if you want to do something in the right of way,
You
you
have
have to come ask permission, because that's the city's property.
Yes.
So I don't want there to be any confusion amongst anyone
Anybody.
else out there that might be wanting to work in the right of way. That's the process for doing anything in the right of way, whether it's talking about planning stuff, building a wall,
Whatever it
the
is.
parking pad, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're in the right of way, you have to come get permission from the city.
Yes.
Period, the end. Always been that way, always will be that way.
Yes, you can't build stuff on other people's property.
Counselor Gwaltney?
Yeah, I just have one question. So if we're discussing the right of way, Can we clarify with Mr. Hughes' department if they will require them to repair the road? Because from the multiple years of construction, the road in front of these trees is extremely deteriorated in really bad shape. I've traversed this area probably 4 times a week, and it's a hazard if you're in the street.
That's not part of tonight's issue.
Yeah,
It's not part of
he's
the
not
issue.
here, but I guess
It'd be,
we
it would be
can,
nice to get it in a proffer to repair the rest of our right of way. If it's gonna be included. Or if Mr. Hughes already got that.
yeah, I don't know, but
They'll have to come with their own.
representatives here.
Are you carrying it over?
Kate,
Gail, what's that?
Gail, what'd you say?
Typically, the inspections department wouldn't consider construction, damage to the right of way, because typically projects don't last for this long, and there's not that many, not that much heavy equipment that moves across the same.
So, but you want me to go back to the homeowners and ask about the road in front of the?
I think, I wanted Mr. Hughes to assess it and tell us if the condition warrants that. Well, maybe it's not.
This is not part of this issue, we're gonna move on.
Over my seat.
Counselor
Okay.
Wolverton,
So-
yeah,
Counselor
I'm
Sims.
in favor of carrying it over as the rest of the committee members are. I know we have, because without a proffer, can't take action.
Right, so, yeah, I think we're gonna plan to carry this over
We need the
and,
legal description if there's gonna be any problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, well, and we have to get the proper.
right, so we'll plan to carry this over, I guess.
Next meeting
Your
is
representatives can
June
speak with
2nd.
Mr.
June
Kendrick
2nd.
about what he needs.
I need the legal description, there's nothing secret about it.
He needs to bring a proffer from the.
Legal
homeowners
description of the
and a
proffers,
legal
yeah.
description. Yep, that's it.
Okay, so
6-2.
we're gonna carry that over without objection, and then we have one new business item, this should be relatively quick. It is 09/05/25, request, consideration of installation of right turn lane at the north end of Cobb Street at the intersection of Oxmoor
Andrew,
Road.
can I ask a question?
Yes.
If this is not an emergent thing, can we move this to we should probably put this in the budget request for the coming year, instead of doing this now 2 months in advance of doing the budget?
Yeah, the discussion was just really, could we go ahead and get the survey done so that we kind of have a scope for the budget?
I mean, Glenn, do we need to get a survey if we're not gonna do it until the budget year starts?
It just speeds it up if you wanna do it.
Well, I mean, I agree, but
So-
we've added a lot of things.
So that, I guess, you know, the discussion is, traffic backs up here, there's new development down the street. We're 3 feet shy, Randy's measured it, 3 feet shy of adding a third lane. We got 12 feet of city right of way here. Randy said if we basically expand 6 feet out, we'd have a dedicated right turn lane, and then this is public safety, Brian. That's public safety. Anyway, so the discussion is just that we wanted to look at adding the dedicated right turn lane to alleviate traffic concerns that come at this intersection, so.
We should get an extra budget, that's just.
So we can go ahead and, we can carry it over, I guess, if we wanted to.
No, I mean, y'all, it's, I'm not on the committee, I'm just saying, this whole, we need to start, the whole thing needs to be carried over to the new budget year, in my opinion.
I think, Councilor Almond, did you?
It's your committee.
I know, did you have an opinion, but I would like to move
I
forward
do think that we
personally
should-
with the survey.
Considering that these things take time and that everything is delayed, and if we wait till the budget year, then we're gonna have to wait till October to do the survey. We might as well do the survey now, so that when we budget it, we can move quickly on installing this, considering the anticipated traffic that we're gonna have in the area due to the restaurants and the apartments. And so when we can get our ducks in a row, which is all this is doing, is getting our ducks in a row, so that we can build out and so that Randy can do the work that's required.
Right.
I would encourage us to consider doing the survey now.
Randy, is this item budgeted, or we have to do an amendment in finance?
It is not.
So if we approve this, it would just go on to finance for June 2nd discussion?
For the we'd need to send the survey to finance?
Yes, because
'Cause there's no.
we've done this, same thing as we've done with a bunch of surveys lately. But yeah, I just want to make clear, we're talking about this, what y'all are asking for is the survey.
The survey,
The
yes,
survey.
so that we can have things known about the scope of the work and what will need to be done to help better budget it.
Provide the survey.
Typically be a contract for the survey.
Right, we'd need a contract with the surveyor, which is what we would do. If we do the survey, our internal people have said this is more a budget item, the actual project. So I think it needs to be considered with the other items for budget. I don't mind a survey being done, but I wouldn't want to get beyond the survey,
Sure.
I guess is my point, into
And that's what we're asking
engineering or
right now.
anything else. If we just wanna look at it and see, if y'all are willing to look at it and just sort of see where the lines are and what can be done and what can't, you know, I
would like-
don't have as much of an issue.
I would
with
like
that.
to make a motion to approve to send to finance for consideration of a budget amendment to pay for a survey.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Sims, second by Counselor Gear. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is 4-0, and with that, we stand adjourned.